back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to be doing an update on my simulator. If you haven't watched my last video, definitely check that out. I will link that in the description below, and I'm going to be referencing that video a lot because I don't really want to go over things that I've already covered. So things like the frame, how I built it, what materials I used, cost, all of that, check out my old video. This video is going to be an update on the back of that video. So I'm going to be referencing that a lot. So if you haven't watched it, definitely check it out or definitely use it as a resource. So in today's video, I'm going to be updating everyone on the additional things I've added to my sim since that video. We're going to start off with the screen. And the screen, just like I said in my last video, I still have the exact same screen up. I've got my Carl's Impact screen, and then I've also got my additional piece of material that I got from Hybrid Me, Phil Stewart. If you haven't checked out hybridme.co.uk, definitely check that out because he's now focusing on that. He's got affiliate links for launch monitors. If you're in the UK, definitely check out his website. I'm still using that same strip of impact screen, and it's taken an absolute beating. It is beaten up, and I'll show that. I'll put that on video now. And what you can see is the screen has taken an absolute beating. I'm going to do a couple of close-ups now. So I'll move in on the actual impact area. And this is the area where a lot of my drivers hit, and a lot of my long irons hit as well. And you can see that the fabric has definitely started to fray. And I'll try and get close up of some of the worst impact areas. So this is where driver generally hits, and you can see it's really starting to tear up this screen. With the actual projector on, you can't really notice this. Moving up, this is where the long irons hit, and say 7 irons, and then moving further up the screen, this is where like your 9 irons, 8 irons hit, and you can see the actual common impact point where my shots actually hit. And then moving up, this is where the wedges hit. And with screens like this, the biggest damage you're going to get, or the most damage you're going to get, comes from wedges, and it comes from the spin. And you can see that it's really started to chew up the screen here in the middle. I'll move over and show you somewhere that's fresh. So I'll move over to the right-hand side where no balls really impact. And as you can see, the screen right there, it looks really clean and new. So that's what it looks like before. Really nice impact screen. And then after about 100,000 wedge shots, this is what it starts to look like. I haven't rotated this. I haven't moved it around yet. I've still got it hung in the exact same position that I had when I first hung it up. And the reason I did that, like I said in my last video, is because my Carl's impact screen, after about 2 months of use, started to really show some significant wear. And I wanted something that I could just basically put up, take a beating, and then move around, rotate it, and replace it, and not really affect my Carl's impact screen. Because what I like about the Carl's impact screen is it has these flaps that, that are connected to the actual impact screen, and it just makes it look neat. You can just have this nice flap covering your bungee cords and also your metal poles behind it. Okay, so that's an update on the impact screen. That impact strip that I got from Hybrid Me, it has taken an absolute beating. And I'm just astounded it's lasted this long, and it's still going pretty strong. I'm just gonna keep hitting balls into it, and I'm gonna see how long it actually lasts. Right. Let's talk about the new things that I've done to my impact screen or my enclosure since the last video. One of the most obvious things that I've added is this ceiling protection you can see. And I'll go into detail now. So why did I want that ceiling protection? For really high flop shots, and also for when I have friends come over and use this, or my kids, especially my kids, they do hit the roof sometimes. They hit sky shots, they hit really bad top shots that actually bounce up and hit the ceiling. So I wanted some sort of protection there. And it wasn't until one of my good friends, Jez, recommended that I do these basically panels. They're foam panels, and they're wrapped in marine vinyl, and they actually look really neat. And this is how a lot of those high-end simulators build those foam panels on the sides. What I did is I just used them for ceiling protection. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get a close-up. I'll put them on screen now. Okay, so these are the panels, and I'll put up images of how I built these things and how I hang these things. But basically what I did is I got a piece of plywood. It all started with plywood. And then instead of buying new foam, which was quite expensive, I just used the same acoustic panels that I used in the back of my sim to try and quieten the sound. I got the acoustic panels from Gumtree. They were really cheap. And what I did was I actually put them with the bumps down, because if I put them with the bumps facing up, you would see it through the marine vinyl. So I put the bumps down on the plywood, and then I just covered them with marine vinyl. The other thing I did is you'll also see, because of the way I built my enclosure, I had a metal bar that runs all the way along the top here of my actual enclosure. And this is because you obviously need somewhere to hang your screen. However, because I had the ceiling protection and then my impact screen, I had a metal bar at the top of my enclosure. And I really wanted protection, because if you hit a flop shot and it just hits at the wrong angle, it would hit that metal bar and the ball would fly off in a random direction. So what I did is I actually made some angled pieces that you can see at the top there. So if you look at the top, I actually have an angled bit of foam wrapped in marine vinyl. But basically what I did is I got the same gutter guards that I used along the bottom of my impact screen. I used that foam and I just did the same process. I had a bit of plywood. I put the gutter guard on the far side of the bit of plywood, wrapped it in marine vinyl, staple gunned, and then they just slide in. So they just slide in and sit there on the metal frame, and they're just wedged in between the metal frame and the top bit of foam, and they just sit there, they don't move. So now I have full protection. If I hit a flop shot into that bit of angled foam, the ball just drops down. If the ball hits the top and goes into my ceiling protection, the ball just bounces down. So I've got full ceiling and that top bar protected now, which is really good. So yeah, if you're looking to do ceiling protection, highly recommend just making some of these panels, because they look quite smart and also they do a really good job. What I'll do is I'll put up a video of how I mount these now. All right, so getting a close up, you can actually see where golf balls have impacted. So that's one of the impact locations there of a golf ball. There's been a couple just on the actual angled pads as well. So it does get used. But how I mounted these is I actually have them just on Velcro. So all I did was I put Velcro along the top, and I probably went overkill. You probably don't need this much Velcro. And what I did was I ended up staple gunning it. This is sticky Velcro, so when you go to take it off, it's probably going to cause a little bit of damage to my roof, but I'm happy I can just paint that and it won't be an issue. It's in the garage, it's not like it's in your house. But with that Velcro, I noticed that when I pulled it off, the actual sticky Velcro would come off of the roof. So I just ended up using a staple gun as well and just staple gunning it to the actual roof. But these stay up. I haven't had any issues of them falling down. So they are pretty solid once they're up. They're not going to fall down. So yeah, that's how I mounted them. The other reason I did want them to actually be able to come down is because that's the access there, if you can see, to my roof. So I needed to be able to access that. So that's why I use Velcro to mount these, so I can easily take them down. Okay, so that's the new ceiling protection and also that metal bar protection that I was talking about. Really, really happy with how that turned out. And like I said, it does work. It has been used multiple times and it's fantastic. It looks good. So definitely do it. If I was to have a room where I had walls on either side, say if I was going to do this in just a spare room, I would actually make those foam tiles for the walls as well. I wouldn't use a curtain like I'm using in my garage, because I think those foam panels actually look really smart, and you could have a very professional looking room if you had those on the walls and the roof. It would look really good. The other thing is they were cheap to make. Because I used my acoustic panels that I got off Marketplace, I bought these acoustic panels. Watch my other video if you want to see the price. I bought hundreds of these things for cheap. They were used, they weren't brand new. I just got them on Marketplace and I got them for really cheap. So you can actually save yourself a fair bit of money by making these things yourselves. Okay, the next addition I'm going to talk about is the lights. And what you'll notice is the two front lights that I did have, there's one of them just there and the other one's up here somewhere. The two lights I did have there were batten lights and they were quite annoying. They looked ugly. So I just got those replaced with just down lights. But additionally to that, I did get some new lights added in my sim. And the reason for this is because I wanted to have some lights over my hitting area. And that's kind of what you're seeing there. So they are on an actual dimmable switch as well. And so I do have my spotlight that I still have. I'll tilt you down there so you can see that. So I do have my little spotlight that of course a lot of you know, that lights up the hitting area. But additionally to that, I added some lights on the roof that just give me a bit of light in my hitting area, but don't affect the screen. So what I'll do now is I'll just put up a video just showing those lights. Okay, so these are the two new lights that I got added. And as you can see, they're ceiling lights. They actually go into the ceiling, but they can rotate on like a little gimbal. So I've actually got them pointing back towards my hitting bay. And that's because I didn't want any light bleeding onto the screen. Because when you've got a projector, you want to try and keep as much light off the projector as you possibly can on the projected image. And so these lights, because I've got them angled backwards, they don't cast any light onto my screen. They only light up my hitting area. And what I'll do now is I'll just show you when I turn these on, I can actually dim and adjust these lights. So I'll show you that now. Okay, so I'm just at the light switch. I've got the lights off. I'll turn them on now on their dimmest setting. So that's them on their dimmest setting. And what I can do is I've just got a little dimmer switch and I can rotate the dimmer switch and I can make it quite bright over my hitting area. So that's the lights on full. And I generally just have these just on a really dim setting you'll see in my videos. And it's just nice to have a little bit of light over your hitting area that is not casting any light on your screen and not affecting your projected image, but is still giving you just a little bit of light over your hitting area. It is just nice to have that. So I added those lights. I do love them. Do you need these? No. As long as you have a spotlight and you can see your golf ball, then that's good. But I just wanted a little bit of extra light, and also for filming and making these videos, it's just nice just to have a little bit of light there. All right, moving on. The next thing I want to talk about is something I'm quite proud of, and it's something that has made probably the biggest difference in my golf sim and to my indoor golf. This thing has saved my body. It's saved my elbows. It's saved my wrists, and it's my impact strip. I have made quite a lot of modifications to this. And what I'm trying to do is come up with something that I can potentially bring to the market in Australia. Because in Australia, there's not a lot of really good options for hitting strips. So I'm thinking potentially this is something that I could sell down the line. But what I'll do is I'll show you this strip that I made. I'll tilt the camera down. Okay, so this is my impact strip or my hitting strip. This is version 3.0, I think. I had a few prototypes. The first one was one that I had alongside my mat, the entire length of my 1.5 hitting mat. And it was great. It was absolutely fantastic and I loved it. But the issue with that one was it was so long that it actually used a lot of material. And material meaning the top actual part of the hitting board or the hitting strip. Because this is putting turf, it does wear out. It doesn't last forever. And depending on swing speed, how often you're using your sim, how steep you are, all of these things shorten the life of your actual hitting strip and the life of this putting turf. This is putting turf. It's not designed to be hit off, and so therefore it does wear out. What I'll do now is I'll give you a close-up of this hitting strip and I'll just show you what I mean. All right, so I've got the video going now. So what you'll see is, it's hard to see on camera, but there actually is a wear patch just here where I've hit. And I've actually rotated this hitting strip because this putting turf, like I said, does wear out. You can see the second patch there already starting to kind of wear out just where I hit. When I had the big long strip over to the right hand side of my hitting mat, I actually did burn through a lot of this putting turf quite quickly because you can only rotate it once. So you've got the forward section where you hit and then the fresh section. So once you rotate it, you're actually going to use a lot of material that's just empty. It's just a waste really of material. So what I ended up doing was I actually ended up cutting into my stance mat or my T-turf, and I replaced it with this hitting strip. Because I've got a GC2, I wanted to be able to hit and putt from the same location without having to move my GC2. I did have my GC2 on a slider. I still have my GC2 on the slider, but I'm not using it to actually move it. It's just there to raise it up to the correct height. And so what you can see is that's my GC2 there. It is on the same slider that I got that I probably showed you in the first video. That is just a kitchen slider. It was very cheap on Amazon, and you can move the GC2 forward and backwards on that thing. It's just got some wheels on the bottom. I didn't want to move my GC2, so that's why I made this hitting strip. And also, I was having a lot of issues with my elbows, so I needed something that would take a bit of force off my elbows. The cool thing about this strip is because you have to replace this turf, I'm going to say for me, it's every probably 2 to 3 months. I wanted to have something that I could easily take off and on without making a whole strip. And you can use certain glues that you can peel off, but it was a bit messy. So what I opted for is, at the moment, I actually have this Velcroed on, and I'll pull this off so you can see it. And so what I've done is, and again, this is a prototype, but I've actually got this bit of turf just Velcroed onto the actual hitting board itself. And this just makes it really easy to replace this bit of turf. I can have these ready to go, and whenever I need to replace the turf, I can just take this Velcro off and put a new pad on, and it's just really easy to do. So yeah, I'm quite happy with how this impact strip is going. Like I said, it's taken a lot of pressure off my elbows. When I first was hitting off my stance mat, which is the T-turf, it's a premium T-turf. When I was hitting off that stance mat, after a few months, I started getting elbow pain, golfer's elbow. And since I made this hitting strip, which if you want to check out, it's the exact same strip I made in my first video. I actually have an impact strip video that I made. I'll link that in the description. I made this thing the exact same way. I just shortened it, so I'm using less material, and I've made it where the pad can be replaced very easily. Okay, so that's the new hitting strip. It is still in prototype phase. I don't think it'll be ready for the big time anytime soon, but it's getting there. I have had quite a few prototypes, and I've gone through quite a few different iterations of this. When you're making these things, not all material's the same. So this is the original strip I had. It was quite good. You can tell I've cannibalized it, but they're not all the same, and not all material lasts. And you can see this is the second version I made here. This was really nice. However, I used a different bit of acrylic, and you can see it's actually shattered. So if you're going to do this, make sure you buy polycarbonate, don't buy acrylic, because the polycarbonate's a lot stronger. I've gone through about 4 different putting turfs, and this one is the best putting turf. Funnily enough, it was the first one I actually got. So quite a lot of testing has gone into where I'm at right now with that impact strip. Okay, the next major upgrade I've had, and I think people know about this already, the BenQ 4K projector. Now, this thing has been an absolute game changer to my sim and my sim golf. Big shout out to BenQ for giving me the opportunity to actually show this projector off. I do feel very honored, and I'm the first Australian YouTuber, I guess, to be given this opportunity from BenQ. If you haven't watched my BenQ projector video, definitely check it out. I'll leave it in the description below. That video would just show how good this new projector is. And I can honestly say that has been the biggest upgrade, the biggest change, the biggest difference that this sim has had. All right, guys, so that's going to conclude this video. If you got any questions or you got any comments, definitely let me know down below, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Cheers.